Now, so far in this hearing, it has felt like the worst episode of The Apprentice. I'm sure you're familiar with that show. It seems like my colleagues and maybe you and some others are trying to become the next vice president of the United States of America. You're auditioning or something like that because Mr. Bobulinski, I know that you take exception to the fact that your credibility has been called into question over and over. But when someone comes to testify under oath, whether it's before this committee, behind closed doors, or in person, then we have to evaluate someone's credibility. And sir, I definitely have always had issues with your credibility, as I know that you are very well aware of.
What's up, y'all? I just watched the latest circus from the House Oversight Committee. You know, the one where Tony Bobulinski decided he was the only person in America telling the truth. And let me tell you, Representative Jasmine Crockett was having none of it. This video is peak political theater. But more than that, it's a moment where truth and integrity finally cut through the noise. Let's watch.
All right, Mr. Galanis, I just want one last question. I'm going to show you a draft email that you provided to the committee. Mr. Chairman, I yield.
Objection on time. Good job. Chair now recognize Ms. Crockett for 1 minute. Or 5 minutes.
1 minute. All right. First of all, Mr. Bobulinski, do you know who Elections LLC is? Yeah.
Well, it's not a who.
Okay. Well, do you know what it is?
Yes, it's a LLC.
Okay. And is it the LLC that your attorney works for?
I believe so, yes.
You believe so. Okay. So at this point in time, I'd ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a document indicating that the law firm representing Tony Bobulinski was paid $10,000 as recently as January of this year by the Save America PAC, which you may recognize as Donald Trump's PAC.
Without objection.
Thank you. Now, so far in this hearing, it has felt like the worst episode of The Apprentice. I'm sure you're familiar with that show. It seems like my colleagues and maybe you and some others are trying to become the next vice president of the United States of America. You're auditioning or something like that because Mr. Bobulinski, I know that you take exception to the fact that your credibility has been called into question over and over. But when someone comes to testify under oath, whether it's before this committee, behind closed doors, or in person, then we have to evaluate someone's credibility. And sir, I definitely have always had issues with your credibility, as I know that you are very well aware of. So let me remind you of what happened behind closed doors.
Well, you should ask Ro Khanna about my credibility.
I haven't asked you a question. Okay?
You are?
When I haven't. So when I ask you a question, that's when you answer. Otherwise, I'm talking. So,
excuse me?
With my time, because it's my time, I want to be clear that when we were behind closed doors, you called a number of people liars. You called the Wall Street Journal liars. You called Cassidy Hutchinson a liar. You called the FBI a liar. You called Rob Walker a liar. You called James Gilliar a liar. You called Hunter Biden a liar. You called Jim Biden a liar. And just today, you added to your list, you called my colleague, Congressman Mr. Goldman, a liar as well. It seems like, according to you, the only person that's telling the truth is you and everyone else is lying. But I want to move on to something else.
Is that a question?
It's not a question.
Oh, okay.
You'll know when I ask you a question, I promise.
Thank you.
So the other thing that I want to talk about is the fact that my colleague from the other side of the aisle talked about the company that we keep. And she wanted to go through a list of people that she felt like were bad company because right now the majority has been relying upon the testimony of someone who's currently sitting in federal prison. And we know that your company is the company of somebody who's been found liable of fraud, as well as defamation, as well as sexual assault, and for whatever reason can't pay his bills at this point in time. But I'm going to ask Mr. Parnas, so this is a question to him. Are you aware if Trump had any associates that have been found guilty of anything?
Yes, lots of them.
Lots of them.
Me included.
You included. Okay, so when you were called here to testify, you weren't called here to testify for any other reason than to tell the truth. Is that correct?
Yes, Congresswoman.
Now, we started this whole sham off because of the 1023. And that was debunked by you, was it not?
Yes, Congresswoman.
Way before we started this impeachment inquiry. And you mentioned a number of times this guy by the name of Rudy Giuliani.
Yes.
Now, everybody is so stressed about the fact that Hunter ain't here today. But, Hunter came and testified behind closed doors for over 6 hours. And every single one of them, they weren't limited to 5 minutes. They could ask whatever they wanted to. And there's a full transcript of his testimony. So I don't know what else they wanted to do besides the fact that they wanted to put on a show. But let me tell you something. This whole thing is based upon something that Giuliani came up with.
Yes.
And we tried to subpoena him that's what I remember. If anybody else remembers. We asked. We said, hey, we should subpoena Giuliani. But, kind of like when we were trying to get his cell phone, they shut it down, right? Like, they don't want the facts. But you would agree with me that considering the fact that you were working under Rudy Giuliani at the time that you went over to Ukraine, that he has maybe some valuable information that he could offer this committee as to whether or not there's anything that we should be investigating in the first place.
Absolutely, Congresswoman. I wish that this committee would subpoena Rudy Giuliani, put him under oath alongside me to get to the bottom of the truth of what actually happened in Ukraine and to the manipulation that Trump and Giuliani and the team went to do.
I agree with you. But somehow it doesn't look like we're going to get there. And I thank you for your time. With that, I'll yield.
Time's expired. Chair now recognizes Mr. Biggs from Arizona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Galanis, on May 9th, 2014, you received an email from Devin Archer confirming.
Right there, that's what accountability looks like. Jasmine Crockett didn't come to play games. She came with facts, receipts, and the backbone that's been missing from too many of these hearings. Let's talk about Bobulinski. This guy has been calling everyone a liar. The Wall Street Journal, the FBI, Cassidy Hutchinson, Hunter Biden, and even Representative Dan Goldman, and still expects us to take his word as gospel. That's not testimony. That's delusion. According to Bobulinski, the entire world is lying except for him. You know what that sounds like? A MAGA loyalty test, not a search for truth. Now let's break down the real kicker. Jasmine Crockett enters into the record that Bobulinski's lawyer is being paid by Trump's Save America PAC. So we're supposed to believe this guy is just a noble truth teller when his lawyer's getting checks from the very man at the center of all this chaos. Please, that's not integrity. That's a political operation. Here's what people forget. Being a patriot doesn't mean blind loyalty to a party or a man. It means loyalty to the truth, to democracy, to the Constitution. And that means we have to hold everyone accountable, including Donald Trump, who's been found liable for fraud, defamation, and sexual assault. Jasmine Crockett brought that up too, and it was about time someone said it out loud in that chamber. Now, Lev Parnas, remember him? The guy who actually worked with Giuliani in Ukraine? He flat out said this whole impeachment narrative started with lies, pushed by Rudy and Trump's inner circle. And what do Republicans do? Ignore it. They don't want to subpoena Giuliani. Why? Because they know he's a liability. Because the truth destroys their narrative. Let me say this clearly. Hunter Biden already testified for over 6 hours behind closed doors. Every Republican on that committee had their shot, but they don't want answers. They want to show. This isn't oversight. It's a taxpayer-funded stunt designed to prop up Trump and distract from real issues, like the fact that Trump's associates keep ending up convicted or indicted. So here's what I say, as a proud left-wing patriot. Stop falling for the smoke and mirrors. Start demanding truth from all sides. Representative Crockett stood up for democracy, for facts, and for the American people in that hearing. And we need more of that, not less. If you agree, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. Let's keep holding the powerful accountable, no matter what party they're in. See y'all in the next one.